You are now tuned in to Papi Chulo Radio, your web portal for the best in pop culture news and interviews.
To a new world of gods and monsters.
The following is a Papi Chulo Radio original program. The views and opinions expressed in the commentaries and or interviews in the following program are solely those of the individuals and are not views of Papi Chulo Radio, its parent, affiliate, or subsidiary companies.
Welcome, foolish mortals, to Horror Hotel, a PapiChuloRadio.com and iTunes exclusive Papi Chulo Radio, pop culture on demand. I am your host and hotel owner, Jeffrey Aruz. We're so glad you could check in. We've been dying to have you. Here on Horror Hotel, we are going to explore some of Hollywood's scariest, most frightening, and creepiest films. Please welcome my co-hosts, concierge, supervisor, legionnaire.
Quite a good scene, isn't it? One man crazy, three very sane spectators.
Yes. Night auditor, Mark Estes.
Hello, hello, hello.
And banquet manager, Ramon Marquise.
Well, welcome back, everyone.
Before we head on over to the ballroom, let's stop by the front desk where one of our bellhops has a few special announcements.
Good evening. We thank you for your patronage. Please step all the way in, and make room for everyone. There's no turning back now. I didn't mean to frighten you prematurely. The real chills come later. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/PCR Horror Hotel. Follow Papi Chulo Radio on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, and YouTube, at Papi Chulo Radio. For more information on Horror Hotel, visit papichuloradio.com/Horror Hotel. Do you have any questions, suggestions, comments, or concerns? Email us via contact@papichuloradio.com. Help support Papi Chulo Radio financially by visiting gofundme.com/papichuloradio. Are you interested in joining the Papi Chulo Radio team as an on-air personality or blog contributor? Email talent@papichuloradio.com. Binge listen to your favorite Papi Chulo Radio programs by visiting papichuloradio.com/archives. You can also download tonight's broadcast and the rest of the series through iTunes. Just search for Papi Chulo Radio's Horror Hotel, and subscribe. Now, grab some popcorn and some snacks. You may step into the ballroom. It's time for your feature presentation.
Thank you. It's time to fire up the film projector in our ballroom so that we can discuss 1931's Frankenstein. Here's the official synopsis of the film. An obsessed scientist assembles a living being from parts of exhumed corpses. All right, my team. I've got to ask the question that I always do at the beginning. Who has seen this movie? Who hasn't seen this movie? Have you ever seen 1931's Frankenstein before? And let's start off with Ramon.
Yes, I had actually seen this movie before. This was probably the third time I've seen this movie. This year.
Oh, wow. Mark?
Yeah, I saw it when I was a kid, but just really paying attention to it was my first time the other night.
Legionnaire?
This is my first time watching the movie all the way through as an adult.
And this is the first time I've ever seen this movie ever. Yes. We're going to get into it. Frankenstein. Let's start off with the cast. So we have Boris Karloff as the creature, Frankenstein's monster. What did y'all think of Boris as the creature?
Very memorable.
Ooh, classic.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it, especially like the face, makeup, and just how he brought it to life. I loved it.
And we have Colin Clive as Henry Frankenstein. What did we think of Frankenstein, the good doctor?
Oh, I loved him in his madness.
Yeah. My favorite part was when he was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I enjoyed him. He was one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, I mean, he was cool. I liked how he went from being, like obsessed with his creature and then being obsessed with protecting his. I mean, it was a great balance because at first, when I first met him, I thought there was no chance for him whatsoever, but he did. He played it off pretty well.
Yeah, I agree with all of you. I think Boris and Colin had really great chemistry together as sort of like the master and his creation. I thought both of them did a really great job individually and in their scenes together. And we have to talk about our homeboy, Edward Van Sloan, who we saw just last week as Van Helsing.
Yeah.
Collecting them checks. I'm here for
He was Dr. Waldman.
Oh, yeah.
All right for the universal go-to. I ain't mad at you.
Yeah, what do we think of our homeboy as a different doctor?
Oh, just as brilliant in my eyes.
I thought that he was pretty good. I felt like he gave the same vibe from Dracula as Van Helsing. Like, look, I done told y'all kids, like, this is not cool. But y'all can go ahead and still play around. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I wish that he was Dr. Van Helsing.
That'd have been interesting.
That'd have been awesome. That'd have been
That
awesome.
would have been interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we have our damsel in distress, May Clark, as Elizabeth Lavenza. What do we think of her?
I loved her.
Yes.
I
Yes.
love this woman. You hear me?
Yes.
Oh, she loved her some Henry.
Didn't
She did.
Through his craziness, through his foolishness, halfway through, I'm like, this heifer really loved this man.
Exactly. I'm looking at her like, what you see in him?
Yeah.
And was clearly a bit psychic.
Right. And when she took her behind to his little lair or whatever, I said, oh, yo, does she really love him? Because I left his ass right now.
Exactly. And then she came in the damn hills. I'm like, yeah, she's really dedicated to the cause.
Right. She climbed those hills, through that forest, to that lighthouse. She was going to get her man. I said, yes, girl, I'm here for you.
That's too funny. And two more characters before we get into the meat and bones. Dwight Fry as Fritz, the Igor-like character.
He was cool.
He was comedy. He was good comedy relief.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was all right. I mean, he was all right.
All
He
right.
wasn't no better than Reinfeld.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Oh, yeah, right.
And Frederick Kerr as Baron Frankenstein, who I am dubbing the Queen of Shade.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
When I tell you, this
That
old
was shady.
he was shady as hell. When he told her, my favorite part was when he told that heifer, they kept talking about the experiments. And he was like, no, baby, it's another woman.
Yes.
Right.
Here's the tea.
Like, right. He had like a slick ass mouth.
Exactly. Like, let me tell you what's really going on here.
But I understand perfectly well. There's another woman and you're afraid to tell me. I was like, oh, stop.
Like, he wasn't scared to even sit there.
He was reading back.
Oh, yeah.
The Baron.
He was more worried about his son's wedding. That's kind of unusual because, you're mostly worried about, it's really the mom and the daughter worried about the wedding than the husband and the father and stuff like that. Like, your night's coming later. Your day's coming later than night. He's like, no, my son needs to be here for this wedding. And you up here talking, you in my face about some experiment. it's another woman, and I'm trying to figure out why you're not pressed about that. Like you, you know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like you should be pressed, but no, you're not. So
And one more shout out to the cast. Marilyn Harris as Little Maria.
oh,
You know, that's the one thing I did not remember from that movie when I
that's
first
the
saw it as a kid.
Legionnaire. That's the
my
one thing
God.
I remember.
Oh,
Well, I will
That's-
say there are
that's
two
the
cuts of the
girl.
movie. There are two cuts. There's a cut that includes her death by drowning, and there's a cut that doesn't.
well, maybe that's it. Because like I said, I haven't seen it since I was a kid, but I would have. It seemed as if that would have stood out. You know, him drowning some little girl, but it
Yeah.
didn't. When I saw it, I was like, oh my
That part
God.
made me holler. I felt so bad because one second I felt so disturbed, the next second I laughed because he just talked
picked it
to her
up and
like
it
a,
was like,
yeah,
right.
like it was nothing. Like, sir, she is not part of this game y'all playing. What are you doing? Like, she just picked mama up and threw her in the water and just walked away.
Exactly.
She's finna jump in the water and hit her.
You float, girl.
Well, no, he didn't walk away. He realized something was wrong. He was like, "Oh shit," and he ran.
They said,
Right.
but the way they described, like he was horrified at what he did. I don't know. I was getting more like because he had a criminal brain. It's like he was like, oh shit, I wasn't supposed to do that though. But yeah, I'm like, how'd you go from flowers to a girl? Like when you picked her up, you're like, oh, you too heavy. You know you can't float. It's like, child.
And I'm thinking he's just gonna play around with her, rock her. Like they finna just have fun. I didn't think he's gonna toss the heifer in the water.
Right.
He was doing a science experiment.
He damn sure was.
Yes. Okay, let's discuss the sets that we saw here in Frankenstein. We start off in the cemetery. We've got Frankenstein's windmill. We've got the, I'm assuming that's sort of like a college type of thing. We also saw the Frankenstein manor, and we even had some exterior stuff in the village and on the outskirts of the village. What do we think of the various sets that we saw in this production? And we also saw like the woods as well.
I liked.
Yeah, I like the old school sets. I mean, they look fake as hell, to be quite honest, but there's some sort of weird realism in the fakeetry because like the cemetery where we start off, I mean, it looked fake as fuck, like the background and like you could tell that's a soundstage.
Oh, yeah.
But it just
right.
it looked so real though. It was like it's that weird. It looks so fake. It's real type of thing.
I was gonna say, excuse me, it definitely gave off that, like film school type vibe at the first beginning of the movie, but I surprisingly fell into that time period. You know what I'm saying? I fell into the sets. I fell into, everything was just so regal to me, if I want to use it for lack of a better term. And it was believable. You know what I'm saying? Like even the Frankenstein's windmill, the where he was created and stuff and all that. Wait a minute, the windmill is not the same thing as a castle. Okay, so anyway, what I'm trying to say is where the body was created and stuff. And that it was slightly gothic, but it wasn't so gothic to the point where it's like over the top, like that big ass spider web in the middle of Dracula's castle last week.
Right.
Because I'm like, what damn spider's that damn big? They can sit there and make an intricate spider. Anyway, but it was very believable. Like you could go to that castle like today. It'll probably be still up kept and everything.
Yeah, Frankenstein's
I really liked
watchtower was gorgeous, I thought.
Yeah. I like all the equipment that he had where he was doing the experiment at. I didn't feel like none of it was too much. I feel like it definitely caught your attention a little bit, especially when some of the, flames or whatever that was when he was doing the experiment. I also really liked his house. I thought that was very, regal, like he said, and grand, and whether it was the living room, the bedroom, I just loved the whole setup and just how it was decorated. I really loved the house.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the house was impeccable. I thought it was gorgeous. I as I was talking about the watchtower was just beautiful. It was like very gothic and creepy, and it felt very real, which for a set in the 1930s, they aren't as sophisticated as they are now, but there was a strong feeling of realism throughout all of the various sets, from the cemetery to the tower to the manor to the windmill to the forest and the cliff and all that kind of stuff. It was really nice. I liked all of the sets in total. The film starts off uniquely because it starts off with a gentleman basically warning the viewers, this is some scary shit, so y'all are going to be scared. If you can't handle scary shit, you better leave, basically.
Yes, I loved it.
Yes. What did y'all think of that opening prelude to the movie?
I'd never seen the opening either. Not that opening, no. When I saw the movie as a child. But that was actually really cool. I liked that.
And even though it came before it did, it reminded me so much of the criminologist from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And
right.
I was like, I hate giving this, like, saying, I see where Rocky got there from, or Rocky Horror got there from. But I'm kind of glad that he didn't come in every 5 minutes to tell the story and whatnot. It was just like, look, like Poppy said, like, look, get ready to have y'all's wigs snatched, and all because this is some shit y'all ain't gonna never see. I've never seen before. So
yeah, shout out to Edward Van Sloan who did that opening.
Yeah, yes, I loved it.
It was fantastic. So we've got Frankenstein. We all know the story. We've seen this story, multiple times now in various iterations, from the different remakes to just various interpretations on TV, from animated to live action. So we know exactly what's going to happen. Frankenstein is searching for body parts to create life from nothing, basically. So was there anything surprising in this version, in this original version, that you thought was like interesting, that was maybe sort of unique to this version versus the various other retellings that you've seen, from the comedic retellings to the more serious modern day retellings?
Strangely enough, the scene with if we can go back to the scene with the little girl, when I saw Young Frankenstein years later, there was a scene with the monster and the little girl, and I didn't get the subtlety. I didn't get the backstory of that particular scene until I saw this movie, and it was like, oh, okay. Because in Young Frankenstein, they're doing a teeter-totter, and then he slams down on the teeter-totter, and the little girl flies up and flies through the window into her bed as her parents come looking for her, which was hilarious. But, I never really got the full gist of that scene until I saw this scene in this movie. So that was actually kind of cool, because it took me right back to Young Frankenstein.
Little Maria gets around.
Little Maria gets around, yeah.
Right.
What about for you too, Mark, Ramon?
I think one thing that stood out to me was, for example, when they come to visit his lair, or where he's doing his experiment, he has a very aggressive tone, if you will, with Dr. Valman, I think that's how you say his name, his dad, and Victor. But when he always addresses Elizabeth, his tone is a lot softer. And so for me, one thing that stood out was that there's always, no matter if he's in his cuckoo frame of mind or he's normal, there's always that connection or chemistry or respect that he always has for Elizabeth. Like there's an underlying love, even when he done gone off his rocker. That's something that really stood out to me.
What stood out to me was, and it might be, I might get my movies mixed up though, but I thought that Fritz's character was going to be more like, ghoulish or something like that, but because again, and I feel horrible saying this though, but for some reason I thought he was going to be called Igor.
Yes.
I don't know why.
Well, no, because he's usually called Igor.
Right.
Okay, because that's what I'm like, his name's Fritz. I'm like, I'm waiting for somebody to say, Igor, get over here and do this. I'm like, well, he would never did it. So I kept rewinding the movie back, like, did he say Igor? Did he say Fritz? Or maybe I just got my movies mixed up or something, though. But okay, that surprised me. I'm like, he's not Igor? I'm like, shit. What movie was I watching?
Yeah, the Igor thing threw me big time just because we're used to calling the assistant Igor in pretty much almost every movie. So the Fritz thing was weird. The other thing that kind of threw me that was jarring was the fact that his name is Henry Frankenstein when he's supposed to be Victor Frankenstein, and that there's an actual character named Victor. So that first scene where Elizabeth is talking to Victor and she's saying Henry and Victor and Henry, I'm like, okay, is this guy Henry and she's talking about her man being Victor, or is this guy Victor and she's talking about her man being Henry? So that was confusing to me. And then they kept on calling him Henry. I'm like, oh, okay, he's Henry Frankenstein, which doesn't have that sort of menace as Victor Frankenstein. But yeah, that was completely jarring for me. And I was like, okay, I guess he's Henry in this movie.
That's a good point, Poppy, because Victor does give a more sinister, like roll the tongue. You get what I'm saying? Like Victor Frankenstein. But it's like Henry. It's like that's why I get when I hear Henry. Like, oh, it seems like it's like this nerd that didn't get a lot of love in school or something like that. Which brings me back to how did Elizabeth pick him up? I really sat there and thought I had a backstory in my head, like were they at a college party or did she sit there like, oh, you look pretty cute, like Elizabeth. I could see Elizabeth with Victor in the movie because he tried to succumb for her. He like, like, like,
girl, I'm feeling you, girl.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly. She's like, you need to stop telling me that. Was basically her response.
Cause he gonna say something like, "I'm infatuated with you" or something like that, and then she tell, "I wish you wasn't" or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that was hilarious.
Yes, because she was
it's like, I'm fond of you. He's like,
right,
like, honey, okay, you shouldn't be,
right?
Because I got a man,
and you his friend,
right?
Like,
that's too funny.
Yeah.
So, this is a horror movie, and something that I think is going to be a tradition here on the Horror Hotel is me asking questions of like, when do you realize something is wrong? Because in horror movies, something always goes wrong, but the characters don't realize it until it's too late. So, when should have Victor realized something was going to go wrong? Was it when he's told that the brain that he used was not a normal brain, but an abnormal brain? Was it when he saw Fritz get killed by the creature? Like, was it when the creature nearly choked him out? Like, when do you realize you've gone too far?
The fact that you want to play God should have been a big indicator that you have stepped one science experiment too far, because the fact that the movie began in the graveyard and y'all grave robbing, it's like, yeah, this is a horror movie. Like this, you've entered horror movie territory officially.
Right. Exactly.
But I think when he realized that, when he started choking, he definitely should have realized then when he started choking the guy out. But my whole thing was going back to the God. Dude literally said, "I know what it's like to be God," and I thought that was so like, wait, what? That's when I was like, oh yeah, this Dr. Frankenstein cuckoo as hell. But he just got so worked up, feeling as if he was equal to God, and had no idea what the hell he had just created.
Right, because as soon as you heard that line, it was like, oh, in the name of God, now I know what it feels like to be God. I thought, ooh, this is not going to end well.
At all.
This is not going to end well at all.
Yeah.
That's why I took a sip from my cup like, okay, that's how you feel. Mm-hmm.
I think something that's really interesting about the Frankenstein story in general is sort of like the public's interpretation of it, because I think for the most part when people think of the word Frankenstein, they are thinking of the monster. They call the monster Frankenstein, when in reality it's Frankenstein's monster, and the doctor is Frankenstein. The actual creature isn't called Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And you know what, Poppy? The reason why I had to reteach myself that is because I was a huge fan of the Monster Squad growing up. And you know, the Frankenstein monster in that movie was called Frankie. They called him Frankie. Like Frankenstein, They kept calling the monster Frankenstein. So when I sit there and go to like the store, they have the Universal Monsters pictures. You see like, you know, Dracula, the Wolfman. You're like, oh, that's Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein, you know. And because in the movie The Bride of Frankenstein, they're creating a bride for the monster. So you're thinking like the Bride of Frankenstein. So I kind of blame a lot of pop culture for doing that because I had to sit there like a few years ago and keep telling myself it's not the Frankenstein is not the monster. The Frankenstein is the scientist who created the monster.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting because I even think to this day costumes of the creature are just called Frankenstein.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like a little bit of trivia that people don't really realize, especially if you've never seen the movies. Or even if you have seen the movies, you'll still, automatically call the creature Frankenstein. Now, in your opinion, who was the true villain of the movie? Is it the creature or is it Dr. Frankenstein?
I think the creature.
I don't know. I tend to hold that more towards. Yeah, I tend to hold that more towards Henry, because he was definitely tampering with stuff that he had no business tampering with, because of his own hubris, and the creature is as twisted as it was just the victim of circumstance.
I have to agree a little bit with Legionnaire but I kind of, in my personal opinion, I couldn't, when the movie got towards its climax, I couldn't pin anything on anybody. Because you look at, like I said, Henry went from being, this mad scientist to the hero of the movie. And it was like a redemption story. So it's like, okay, and then you look at like Legionnaire just said, the monster didn't ask to be brought back. You know what I'm saying? He's a walking puzzle piece of human flesh, and he's just going by, First of all, Fritz is antagonizing him. Like, Fritz, why the fuck do you have a damn
torch?
What they call a torch in broad daylight? Like, he has the council thing. So you is really like when that incident happened, because Fritz kept playing with him. It was kind of reminded me of when Kenya on The Real Housewives.
Oh my gosh!
At the reunion,
So like, Fritz is Kenya and the creature is Portia.
Yeah. And you see how this turned out in both situations.
They both got dragged.
Can't be poking that beast.
Exactly.
Fritz got dragged.
We see each other.
Exactly. So when he killed Dr. Walden, I can't remember, was it Dr. Weldon? When he killed him, it was like every person that he killed, well, the first two people he killed rather were, for lack of a better term, fucking with him.
Well, Dr. Walden was he really fucking with him, or was he really
No, he was about to slice it to him though. You know what I'm saying?
Well, he was trying to figure him out.
Say what?
Well, he was trying to figure him out. Like, what did Frankenstein do?
What else do you need to figure out? I'm here now. Like,
oh my gosh!
Don't cut into me no more. I'm already in pain as it is, because they didn't see that they don't know if the man was in pain or not. And then the little girl was an accident, and so I guess that's where this whole tragic monster figure or tragic grotesque figure comes into play. With like, I didn't want to be here, so I'm just gonna go take care of the man who did this to me. So if he is the villain, then he would be a great villain, because the great villains are those who do not realize that they are villains. They're always in their own mental. In their mind, what they're doing is right. For some reason, it's right. Yeah. And so a part of me is saying there's no true villain though, but if anything, everybody's a villain to some side, except for like Elizabeth and Victor and even the Baron. It's like the Baron was just trying to get drunk and celebrate his son's wedding. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my gosh.
Especially when he took that wine, talking about some, I guess it was his mother's wine, something he don't need it. No, fool, because you want to drink it.
That's too funny. I'm probably leaning towards Henry being the villain, although you made a really good argument, Mark, about the creature sort of like being an unwitting villain, which I guess he kind of is, but I still like lay the blame towards Henry. If Henry wasn't like messing around with stuff that he shouldn't be messing around with, like the creature would not exist and none of that would have happened. Yeah.
Cosign. I think that like when you go into dark territory, what do you expect? It's like we told you not to. Like, it's like what the doctor, Dr. Weldon told him. If I'm butchering his name, y'all please tell me. When he went and
Waldman.
told, like, yeah, Waldman. Okay, when Dr. Waldman talked to Elizabeth, like, yo, I tried to tell him, but then he went on his own path, and I have other stuff to do. Y'all saw my classes are going; they're real popular and stuff, so I don't have time to sit there and chase after one student who doesn't want to subscribe to the concept of common sense. So whatever. So, but he already sat there and left, so he could be the villain, but it's like he kind of redeemed himself towards the end of the movie.
I can agree with that. This film has a lot of big moments in it, from the "it's alive" moment to the windmill getting burnt down. Were there any smaller moments in the movie that stood out to you? And as y'all think, I'll go over two of mine. Like, I think any scene with the Baron was a highlight just because he was reading people for filth, and it was fantastic. And I loved the moment earlier in the movie when Elizabeth and Victor and Dr. Waldman, traipse through the storm and are knocking on the door of the watchtower in the rain and are basically there to do some sort of intervention with Henry, and Fritz answers the door first and he doesn't want to see anybody, and then they're still knocking and they're yelling for Henry, and he finally comes down, and in the beginning he's like, y'all need to go back, and they're like, hell no, we came in through the rain, and we're coming inside. So that small moment was like a highlight for me. I really enjoyed it. Any other small moments for you three that sort of stood out for you?
So for me, traditionally they say that it's usually the white girl that, they hear noise, they go follow the noise. It's always the white girl to do something stupid and get her butt killed. And I think that this little chick, I guess it was weird to stand out to me. This little chick, I feel like she was the originator of this. Because this little girl playing outside with a little dog.
Oh, Maria? I thought you were talking about Elizabeth
for
a moment.
No, Maria. So,
Maria.
You by yourself playing with this dog, and you see this thing come out the bushes of the woods. Clearly, he don't look normal. But for your little innocent mind, cool, fine, whatever. But clearly he's a stranger. You ain't never seen him before. Why is you playing with strangers? Why you go up, you grab his hand, you bring him to you. I felt like it was a cool moment just because it showed her innocence, and also it drew him to her because she wasn't trying to torture him like the guy was with the torch. She was very soft with him and welcoming with him. But look what happened. You end up getting killed. So for me, that stood out. But that scene with the Baron and Elizabeth when he kept trying to read her about her man, that was just everything to me. That was hilarious.
For me, it would have to be what Poppy you were talking about, the rain scene, because Elizabeth at least give us shelter. I'm in stiletto heels. That's stilettos though, but I'm in heels and pantyhose, and I have on a dress. You don't do this. Don't do this, Henry, because don't. And then the fact that, Fritz, he don't want to see nobody. Motherfucker, y'all, let me stop because I want to keep dropping F-bombs though. But yeah, I'd have been, if she had been black, Fritz would have got red as soon as she got up in there. Don't you ever sit there and tell me no. Anyway, but the other scene for me that kind of struck me was the scene where the father's walking through the town with Maria. That broke my heart because it was I would say it was a misunderstanding because I want to let everybody know now, because we're going to do a couple of, other features that might have this in them. I have a thing with horror movies when they kill kids. And so, but unless it's it drives the story forward. And I'm just throwing a movie out there like Pet Cemetery and I can't think of another movie.
Love that movie.
Yeah, it just like it wasn't gratuitous, it wasn't graphic, it wasn't like, we're just doing this for shock value. When it helps the story move forward, then yeah, I would, because it's still it emotes an emotion. But that broke my heart because I could look in that man's face, and they didn't have a doll. They had him carry the actual actress, and she played that so well. She was lifeless, and the way this scene kept going, and you're like, is anybody going to stop and just sit there and take her from him and ask him anything? But it just killed. It was like death. Death had came to the town. It had came to the town before Frankenstein even got there.
Right.
Because as he was walking, it felt like, like when Pepe Le Pew was walking past something, everything just starts dying. It just felt like that. Like he walked past a group of people celebrating, their facial expression just dropped, just droop, droop, droop. And that stood out for me pretty much than more any of the other scenes in the movie, because it was directed so well, and it was acted so well, and somebody in 2017 to get emotional behind it like that, yeah, it worked for me.
Yeah, all the scenes with the Baron were just nice little moments for me, because again, as a kid, I mean, you don't get all the shade, but then watching it as an adult, it's like, oh, he was shady.
I agree with you, Mark, about that scene. I think that scene with the father, whose name is Ludwig, and little Maria, like, that really changed the tone of the movie completely. Like, if they would not have included that, like, I can kind of see, I believe, was it Ramon that said that it was, like, shocking, but it was also a little bit comedic, that scene. But, like, once you added in that scene afterwards with the father carrying her lifeless body through the town, and much like what Mark said, that was the actress, and she played lifeless convincingly, like, that completely was like a whoa, like, what the hell just happened moment, and it really brought the horror factor into the movie, which, I mean, I guess for 1931, like, what we're seeing is horrific, but, like, by today's standards, I mean, the movie's a little tame up until you get to that moment, and you're like, this is horror right here.
Yeah, the death of Venice is always just horrific, So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, poor little Maria. So the film's climax, let's discuss it, because it sort of starts off with basically it's the deaths. We have the death of our homeboy, Dr. Waldman, then you've got the death of little Maria, then Frankenstein invades the manor and frightens Elizabeth. I gotta say, I got a chuckle from that scene, because, like, Frankenstein's behind her, or I should say, the creature is behind her. Like, she's sort of like walking around not realizing the creature's behind her, and then all of a sudden she turns around, you're like, oh shit. And I guess they get into some sort of tussle, and she faints. And then it's, the whole villagers with the torches and the pitchforks ready to, give out some street justice, basically.
Yeah. That's what the torch wielding villagers.
Yeah. So let's talk about the climax.
I agree with you, Poppy, on the whole, because I was like, first and foremost, they heard the monster, right, at the house. I'm like, how can you hear this monster's grunt in this big ass house? Like, how can you hear this damn grunt? So they run upstairs, and then he's like, it's coming from the basement. So they run down to the basement, and Frankenstein's outside. I said, what the hell are y'all doing? Like, I'm outside. And I'm like, so how can you not hear that the monster was outside when you went to the top floor to the basement and you heard the shrill screams of Elizabeth, who I actually laughed at this scene. That was the first part, like Poppy said, that took me out the movie. Because I'm like, did they play this for laughs? Like, they say, good horror movie has a few, like, laugh moments to help you alleviate, like, balance out the scare factors and stuff like that. Because I'm like, this looks like some Abbott and Costello type shit, or Three Stooges, like, she's over here, like, she's like, I'm like, how do you not know that there's somebody in the room? And plus, he has to be smelling god awful. It's a dead flesh walking around. Like, that should have hit your nose as soon as the window opened. It's like, ooh, damn, what the hell is that? But
Right.
but after that, and then they get all the villagers together, and I like that they get Ludwig to lead a group because Frankenstein's affected him, and Frankenstein's affected Henry. So, and then
Mhm.
and so you got these two groups led by these people who were going to take him out regardless. You know what I'm saying? There was no, because I thought the Henry's gonna be like, well, let me lead my group, and I'm gonna try to save him. But thankfully, he was like, I gotta take you down, son, because you're doing the utmost, and I
You're
shouldn't have done
doing the
this.
most.
You're doing the most. You're doing the utmost right now, and I need for you to just stop because I feel horrible by crossing that line. And if I can sit there and find a way to, retrace my steps, then I'm going to do it. So,
Absolutely.
Any other thoughts on the climax of the movie?
No, just that unfortunately, the creature had to die.
Yeah, there was a moment, this was the first time that I'm watching this movie, there was a moment where I thought Henry could die, and there was a moment when I thought the creature could die, and then there was a moment where I thought both of them were going to die, and then Henry got tossed like a rag doll on the windmill.
that was hilarious.
It was funny, but it was also very realistic, and I could see sort of where they faked it, but still it looked pretty real to me, and I was surprised by that realism, especially for it being a movie from the 1930s. But he somehow miraculously survived, and the creature didn't, which is kind of funny because I know that we talked last week about Dracula and how there are sequels to Dracula and Dracula died, but there are sequels with Dracula Live, and there are sequels to this movie because obviously he gets a bride at one point. So somehow, even though the creature died, he still survives in film.
Yeah, I thought that was the second time it took me out of the movie too. Was when that doll hit that wind. I'm like, I chuckled, but then I'm like, oh, he's dead. There's no way hell he could come back from that. But then I was shocked at the end of the movie when he was sitting laying in bed and everybody was fawning over him. I got a question for everybody. Did y'all find it kind of interesting, given the fact that nobody said anything to him? Like, how did this creature come to be? And
Yes, I said that's exactly what I thought. I was like, okay, did anybody stop to think, one, what the hell were you doing up at that watchtower? And how the hell did this thing get to be created and walking around in the first place? Where did it come from?
Right.
He sort of explained a little bit, but it was like a teeny tiny little sentence where he was basically like, I stole body parts from the cemetery, but they didn't follow it up with what?
yeah, because this thing has killed an innocent child. You know what I'm saying? This thing has. It's what. I mean, when everything dies down, well, how did it come to be? What happened? It seemed because somebody be like, oh, that was so-and-so's face. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or, did the dead get back up and walk around or something? Or, because everybody who knew that but Henry created the monster was dead, outside of Victor and Elizabeth. And we didn't see Victor no damn more after the wedding was canceled. So I was like, maybe that probably that could be a plot point where Victor's get jealous and well, I'm gonna tell everybody that you was one created the damn monster, and they can get Elizabeth, ruin them. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. I was just that stuck out to me. That was the biggest loophole to me. But I might have got ahead of myself, Poppy. I'm sorry if I did.
No, you're good. You're good.
No.
So what about the coda scene at the very end? After everything happened, we see that Henry is alive, and the Baron is excited about planning for the wedding. And then the movie ends. I thought it was a little weird and jarring. Sort of like last time when we discussed Dracula, how the end just sort of happened. They kill Dracula, and then all of a sudden Van Helsing is like, oh, I got some stuff to do around this crypt. You all can leave. And then we see the two characters, leaving the castle, or, the location that Dracula had bought in the film. And then all of a sudden in this one, we sort of end with I guess, a happy ending, or like, a sort of like, oh, everything's okay now type of ending. And I'll be honest, I would have preferred it to have ended with us seeing the windmill burning, to be quite honest.
Right, just
Yeah.
leave it there.
Yeah, they could have ended it right there, but yeah, they just kind of like tacked on that weird epilogue that they did get married, and even though he's recovering from his ordeal, the Baron is still there and celebrating the wedding and the future of his family, and like,
Right.
oh, okay.
Well, I thought two things about the ending. One, like Poppy said, was kind of jarring. Because I think it felt like, because they described it as pre-code horror movie, and so I'm thinking like, but it still had some remnants of like the code, because every movie had to have some sort of happy ending or something like that. Some sort of like, everything had to be wrapped up in a nice, pretty little bow. And I thought that may have been some of the reasons behind it, because like you, Pop, I would have preferred that windmill burning. It's like the monster is dead, and that was Frankenstein, ladies and gentlemen. And then the other thing I thought about, don't laugh at me, y'all, but I'm so glad there's no black maids in this damn movie. I know it's kind of left field, because
I feel where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm white, and I'm like, see, I mean, we all were maids and butlers back in the day. I'm like, everybody walking around there is white, so don't act like it wasn't any white butlers and maids back in the day. Like,
I like that line. There are white butlers too.
Right. Like the ending for me was cool. I definitely felt like it didn't necessarily fit like the rest of you guys. That they could have stopped when the when the thing blew caught on fire and things. But yeah. And I didn't even get what was the significance of telling us at the end, having this moment about the mama's wine. Like this was supposed to be like a scary movie, and you kinda ended on like a funny note. So that was
Yeah. Oh, he doesn't need the wine, but I do.
right. Like, okay. That's
And
how
then
you in a horror movie.
exactly, and then let's have a toast to future Frankensteins. I'm like, a child's dead. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right,
a child
exactly.
is dead because of your son, sir. Let's just be real here. Like,
Okay, so let's discuss awards and accolades. Frankenstein is widely regarded as one of the best films of 1931, and as well as one of the greatest movies of all time. The film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry in 1991. It was deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. In 2004, the New York Times placed the film on its best 1,000 movies ever list. It's also been recognized by the American Film Institute. It was named the 87th greatest movie of all time on its 100 Years, 100 Movies list. The line, "It's alive, it's alive," was ranked as the 49th greatest movie, quote, in American cinema. The film was on the ballot for several of AFI's 100 series lists, including AFI's 10 top 10 for the sci-fi category, also 100 Years, 100 Movies, 10th Anniversary Edition, and twice on 100 Years, 100 Heroes and Villains for both Dr. Henry Frankenstein and the Monster in the Villains category. The film was ranked number 56 on AFI's 100 Years, 100 Thrills, a list of America's most heart-pounding movies, and the Chicago Film Critics Association named it the 14th scariest film ever made. Let's check in on the Rotten Tomatoes fresh meter, and Frankenstein, 1931's Frankenstein, is certified 100% fresh, which is pretty impressive. So now it's time to hand out some of our own awards here in the ballroom. And let's start off with the easiest one of the night, the Queen of Shade.
Damn, Baron.
Oh, Baron Frankenstein.
Yes, what was the read of the night?
When he told her it wasn't no experiment, that it's another woman. So you just gonna tell this woman The man got another woman. It's kind of like how they say, like present day, our generation, they say, if your man say he's working late, that means he's cheating. So this was kind of where something like that was stemmed from. He's saying it's an experiment, which we all know it was, but this will tell me something, you lied to me. You know it's another woman. You just don't want to tell me.
And unapologetically too. Like he just took over the whole entire scene. It's like another woman has taken care of your wedding, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, he read the Burgermeister. He even read the townspeople. It's like it's extraordinary how friendly you can make a lot of people on a couple of bottles of beer. Tomorrow they'll be all fighting. I was like, girl, that's shady. Really?
Right. I forgot he said that.
What about a spot of tea, the most teaful moment?
I would say when Dr. Walden was told Henry, Henry was like, well, I took body parts from graveyards, gallows. I even stole the brain from your office. He said, oh, the brain that was in my office was the one that was stolen was a criminal brain. So,
Exactly.
Dr. Waldman is reading in every movie.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. For me, I have to say when Victor, who is Dr. Frankenstein's friend,
yes,
pretty much told the wife how he feel about her.
That's where I was going. That was mine. When he was basically about to profess his love, and she was like, you're the friend. I like Henry. Like, you need to stop.
Right. Like, me and your dude are friends, but I'm still finna express my feelings for you. Oh, yeah, that was juicy for me.
Oh, that was definitely... Both of those were definitely up there for me.
Agreed.
What was the most shocking moment?
Toss that heifer in the water. When he tossed Lil Marie in the water, that threw me off.
I can co-sign with that.
Oh, absolutely.
So to follow that up, the Mickey Rooney Award for Excellence in Child Acting, Little Maria, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're going to tell her how far he was walking. They're going to tell her how many takes it took to do that. She really played lifeless. Like, you really could have thought it was just a fake doll or something. She did a very good job.
Yeah. What was the best usage of a cheesy special effect?
That damn windmill. I'm sorry, y'all. This shit just took me all the way out. I was like, damn, they just threw a doll over a goddamn...
oh my gosh.
Like, oof.
I can co-sign that as well a little bit. I wouldn't say the doll, but like every shot of the creature, like at the tippy top of the windmill, and we see the windmill turning, like he wasn't there. Like that was an effect to where he was like superimposed into the scene, but it was cheesy, but I was here for it. What about the That's So Retro moment? What was a scene or something in a scene that sort of like took you out of it and was like, oh, okay, this is old as fuck?
Oh, the laboratory equipment.
Yeah, I'll go with
a little
that
ball of static electricity going on in the crystal.
Yes.
Ball. That was.
Yeah, I concur.
Yep, that would be mine too.
What was the moment that made you gag?
We mean horrifically or like, girl?
It's up to
you. Well, what gagged me was when Elizabeth was just like, oh, she's got a feeling. She just knows something's gonna happen. Something's wrong. Something bad is about to happen. I was like, girl, okay, you better crank up that feminine intuition.
Right.
I don't think I had anyone for me. I think it was when, actually, I'm going to be honest with you, when Frankenstein took out Dr. Walker, I did not know it was going to happen. I love
how you change his name every time. Now he's Dr. Walker.
No, I thought I said Walden. I thought I said Walden. But anyway, I thought it was when he got killed because the actor, I mean, he's the go-to person. And plus, you're not supposed to kill every person who explains everything in the horror movie. So it was just kind of jarring for me because I would be that person in the horror movie explaining shit. And I'd be like, oh, you got to die, Mark. Now you explained everything. So.
For me to be when Dr. Waldman was teasing Frankenstein with the fire, like, why is you fucking with this monster? You don't know what the hell about to happen. You just teasing this man with the fire. I just thought, yeah, that for me, I was like, oh yeah,
When
this fool is
Fritz.
crazy. Fritz, my bad, yeah, him. When he was teasing man with the fire, that did it for me. I was like, oh yeah. I feel like something bad about to happen then.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense. Who was the diva?
Um,
Eva.
I'm gonna say the Baron. I'm sorry because
Okay.
he was bigger than life. I'm sorry.
I can
And
co-sign with that. I was gonna give it to
this
Elizabeth, although comedically, part of me also wants to give it to the monster. But
I would say Baron too, because he didn't have a lot of, like, he wasn't in every scene, but baby, his scenes were memorable, and he took over every scene he was in. So yeah, I would say him.
yeah, shout out to the Baron.
I'm good with that.
Definitely a highlight. So now it's time to rank the film with our very special categories. We have 5 categories that you can use to rank Frankenstein. And the first category is the Screamer. It's for a movie that is scare filled. We have the Gutbuster, which is a movie that is basically filled with gross stuff. We have the Eye Popper, which is for a film that's visually impressive. We have the Gravedigger for a film that is lacking scares. And then we have the Mind Blower for overall best in show. And you can mix and match categories. You do not have to just give out one. It's totally up to you. And let's start off with Ramon.
I would say I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with Eye Popper because I just felt like for 1931, I just felt like there was a simplicity to a lot of the set, but it was very effective. Whether it was the grandness of the house, whether it was how kind of state of art for that time, I felt like the laboratory area was, the setting of the town and just different places. So yeah, for me, I would give it Eye Popper.
Legionnaire.
um, yeah, I would give it eye popping because the visual sets really worked for me. The look of the movie, even for 1931, I mean it's timeless for me. Even in some of the more fakey type stuff that was going on, it still worked very well for the time of the movie. So it didn't take me out of the movie at all. So yeah, that's what I got.
Mark.
Eye Popper. I mean, I liked everything that the movie gave me, considering the small time frame. It was nicely packaged, and the story flowed. There was no dragging. There was no boring ass dialogue or just exposition. Everything flowed. Like the whole scene with the doctor and Henry all just sitting there discussing what he's done and him coming to the realization like I've totally screwed the pooch with this one. And it's like the mentor saying like, yeah, you screwed up, but you got to get back up and do what you need, do what needs to be done. And it's like the doctor was passing off his like pretty much like saying like, yeah, you screwed up. But it was kind of like him giving to Henry his common sense because he was getting ready to leave the set. You know what I'm saying? Like he's getting ready to exit stage left, and so that's why I think Henry picked back up and did everything he had to do. But it flowed nicely, and like I said, within an hour 14 minutes, an hour 10 minutes, very very nicely done.
I co-sign with all of you. I think the film is an eye popper for all the reasons all of you said, and I'm going to throw in an addition of Mind Blower, the overall best in show. I mean, this is a classic. It's legendary, and I feel like it needs to be classified as a mind blower as well for just the amazing legacy of Frankenstein and the monster, the creature. So now it's time to rate the film. On a 1 to 10 scale, we're handing out hotel room keys. The point system is allowed. So how would you rate 1931's Frankenstein. And let's start off with Legionnaire.
Let's see. This movie I will give 9 room keys. Definitely was a nice throwback to the movie I saw as a child, and it gave me some stuff that was new. Definitely gave me a new appreciation of the acting and the visuals. So that's what I got. 9 room keys.
Mark, what about you?
I'll give it 9 room keys as well. Like I said, it still upholds his narrative and its worth and and all that good stuff. And also, I don't really follow Rotten Tomatoes like that. I don't know. I just something about the whole thing that irks the fuck out of me. But it's correct. It is 100% fresh even to this day. It's still relevant. It's very relevant to this day. And there's other movies. I mean, it's iconic. So yeah, 9 keys for me.
Ramon, what about you?
I would give it, I would say 8 room keys. I think it's a classic. It's actually one of my favorite old school horror movies. I really appreciate it. The acting. I feel like it was a good mixture of, you had the scary aspects, but then they threw in, comedic things here and there. The wardrobe, the sets. I just love everything about it. So I would give it an 8.
Well, Ramon ruined it, y'all, because I'm giving it a 9 as well. So unfortunately, we don't have a streak, but it's fine. And I'm giving it a 9 because I just thought it was an incredibly strong picture. It was visually stunning. I thought the story was very well done. The actors were really good. There were a lot of standout characters, from the characters that had bigger roles to even the smaller roles. And I'm talking about you, Little Maria. I just thought it was a really strong movie. So it gets 9 hotel room keys from me. All right, listeners, please drag your bodies away from the ballroom and prepare to check out. Join us next time for a brand new installment of Horror Hotel. Once again, here's one of our bellhops with a few special announcements.
Good evening. We thank you for your patronage. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/PCR Horror Hotel. Follow Panpichulo Radio on social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, and YouTube, at Panpichulo Radio. For more information on Horror Hotel, visit panpichuloradio.com/Horror Hotel. Do you have any questions, suggestions, comments, or concerns? Email us via contact@panpichuloradio.com. Help support Panpichulo Radio financially by visiting gofundme.com/panpichuloradio. Are you interested in joining the Panpichulo Radio team as an on-air personality or blog contributor? Email talent@panpichuloradio.com. Binge listen to your favorite Panpichulo Radio programs by visiting panpichuloradio.com/archives. You can also download tonight's broadcast and the rest of the series through iTunes. Just search for Panpichulo Radio's Horror Hotel, and subscribe. We hope you've brought your death certificate. Make final arrangements now.
Thank you. My fellow Horror Hotel team, please wish our hotel guests and the listeners a good night.
Good night, listeners. Until next time.
Peace and soul.
Take care, guys.
Thanks for tuning in. You may have checked into the Horror Hotel, but who says you're allowed to check out? Good night.